Hello and welcome to another creative coding video. Today we're going to take another look at colour. We introduced a new way of mixing colours last time, but you might have found that video going a little bit fast. So today we're going to make a much shorter video just to gently ease ourselves into this new idea of mixing colours. So I'm logged into Open Processing as usual. I've set up my simple instruction and I'm using the Simple.js library. That sets things up so we can write easier code. Now, we've used the fill and circle instruction many times now, so we should be quite familiar with them. Fill is used to pick a colour for filling a shape, and circle draws a circle. So this instruction draws a circle at 400, 300, which is the middle of the canvas, and has a size of 100. And the fill instruction takes a colour, so we're saying we want a fill colour of red. So if we run that code, we should get a red circle. Yep, that shouldn't surprise us. We've done that lots and lots and lots of times, probably even more than that. If we want a different colour, we might say blue, and we've drawn a blue circle. Now those colours come from a list, and there are lots of colours on that list. Some of them are quite specific, like pale goldenrod, or papaya whip, or peach puff, or Peru, and so on. There's quite a lot of colours there that we can pick and choose from. Now, it might be that the colour we have in mind isn't on this list. It's a big list, but even so, the colour we really want to use might not be on this list. So you might be thinking back to, well, if I was using paint, ink, pens, I might be mixing my own colours to get the exact one I want. Can we do that with code? The answer is yes. Now I'm going to have a look at something that we should be familiar with, and that is a painting program or a photo editing program. You'll have probably seen that in many of these programs there is a way of picking colours, a colour mixer. And here I've got a blank canvas and I'm using a brush tool and I'm picking a colour, so I might choose sort of a green colour there. There you go. And I might choose a red colour and draw with that. Oops, and I might choose, do that again. I might choose a blue colour. There. Now what you might have noticed, in many of these colour pickers, there are often sliders. Now you can see on this one, as I pick a different colour, those sliders change. And those sliders have red, green and blue RGB next to them. They also have some numbers. What are those? Well, they're a way of mixing colours, and what's happening is that the colour we arrive at, let's say this lovely yellow, it's actually a mixture of red, green and blue light, and it's got a high amount of red, which is why the slider is near the top. Let's push it all the way to the end. A high amount of green and not so much blue. We can even turn that all the way down to get a deeper green, a deeper yellow. So what we're saying is that yellow is made by mixing red and green but no blue light. If we pick another colour, let's say a nice, let's find a nice green. Well, green is mostly green but not much red and blue. We could even have 0, but as we change the amount, we do change the shade of colour, and this is how we can get quite high control over the exact shade that we want. So this is a kind of a green which has a slight tinge of red to it, to my eyes anyway, and that's because it does contain a bit of red. Let's look at some purples. Well, they are a lot of red, a lot of blue, and not much green. If I turn that down, I can change. Let's draw that there. If I change the amount of green up a bit, it changes the shade. Do that again. You can see it gets lighter. There you go. So this is something that's present in many tools, whether it's photo editing tools or painting software. And we often just pick the colour that we want. We don't really think about these red, green and blue levels. But we do need to think about them when we mix colours in code. Now I'm going to use a website here. I'll put the link in the description to read off those numbers that describe how much red, green and blue light I'm mixing. I could have done it here actually. They're just smaller there. So let's say yellow. Yellow was, what was it? It was red. Red was 255, green 255, and blue 0. And if I use the tool to do the same, you can see it here. Turn the blue all the way down, makes a nice yellow, and that's telling me that that's red 255, green 255, blue 0. Now, can we use that in our code? Yep, we can. Instead of using that name, we can actually put 3 numbers down, which are the red, green and blue, the amounts of those colours, red, green and blue lights that we're mixing. So this fill instruction is now saying mix a maximum amount of red, a maximum amount of green and no blue, RGB, red, green, blue, and that should give us this lovely yellow. Let's try it. It worked? Yep. That's the colour we get when we mix a maximum amount of red, a maximum amount of green, and we don't turn on the blue light when we're mixing those colours. Let's try it again with a different colour. Let's see. Oh, that's a nice orange, yeah. So that's actually a maximum amount of red, a fair amount of green and no blue. So that's 2551720. Let's try that in our own code. I'm just copying and pasting those numbers there. That should give us a nice orange circle. Great. That worked. So that's really all there is to it. We can mix colours much more precisely than picking them off a list of names. That's a nice kind of a marine sky blue. I can't really describe it, but it's a nice combination. And I'm going to copy those numbers, 68, 255, 241. Oops, let's get back. And I should get a circle with that fill colour. That's great. Now before we leave it, because in some sense that's all we kind of really wanted to do with this video, but it is worth having a think about, well, what happens when all those levels are high. So we've got high levels there of all those red, green and blue lights. You can see the resulting colour is also light. As I start turning down the amount of red, green and blue, you can see the colour is getting darker. So that's kind of an intuition that's worth keeping in mind. So black is going to be 0, 0 and 0 because there's no red, green or blue light being mixed. And white is the maximum of all of those levels. There you go. And greys are when there's an equal amount of each. I've almost got that equal. There you go. And a darker grey would be less of those levels. So that's something you kind of pick up after you have a play for a while. You don't need to know that. And the other thing I should say is, don't worry if this way of mixing colours seems a little bit counterintuitive. What do I mean by that? Well, if I said, okay, let's find the red, green, blue levels for yellow. We want a yellow. Well, actually, it's not so obvious what the red, green and blue levels should be. That's okay. We're going to come back to that point at a later video when we look at a different way of mixing colours. But for now, this is all we need to know, and it's a useful thing to know because almost all software that we might come to play with does use red, green and blue as a way of mixing colours, and it's how the colours are mixed when we make computer screens or tablet screens or smartphone screens or your television. If you look very closely, you'll see that they are made up of tiny red, green and blue lights which vary in level to make the colours we want. There you go. I hope that was easier to understand. The best thing to do is have a play. This is one of those things where I can talk to you just to introduce you to the idea, but you'll really only understand it by having a play yourself. So maybe, pick some colours from a colour picker and use them in your code, and then after that, have a play with the numbers directly. See what happens. There you go. And if I make that 10, see what happens. Great. I hope that was interesting and fun. We'll see you next time. Bye.